Chapter 15. The claws are out. My eyes flickered open, a stinging sensation causing me to shut them again quickly. I hissed in pain, scrunching up my nose in distaste, not enjoying the feeling of my limbs weighing an entire ton. I ground, peeking my eyes open again slightly, allowing them to adjust to the bright lights above me. Pushing myself up onto my elbows, I glanced around the room. I gazed around the room, noticing the door to Gayla's room was missing, causing me to flicker my brows. Confused, Clara! Announced Gayla, pushing herself up from the couch in the corner, rushing over to me. How are you feeling? How long have I been asleep? I groaned, rubbing my eyes viciously, pushing my mess of a hair out of my face. 2 days, said Gayla sheepishly, causing my jaws to drop. I slept for 2 days? I asked, shocked. Gayla groaned. Gayla swagged, smiling sheepishly. Yeah, most women find it nearly impossible to sleep through their eight, so you're pretty lucky. What happened to your door? Gayla rolled her eyes, shaking her head. You were screaming in your sleep last night, so Dylan break down the door to get to you. It wasn't even locked, but the doorknob is pretty stiff, so he just kicked through it. My eyes widened, causing Gayla to laugh. Oh my god. It's fine, Clara. He's already ordered me a new one, although my parents weren't overly pleased about it. Where's Dylan? I asked, feeling slightly embarrassed that my mate had seen me in such a state. Although I was more than thankful for his self-control because I wanted my first time to be when we both felt ready, not because some world it was telling me to. He's currently training the fighters, but he's been cutting the sessions short so he can get back here as soon as possible. I shook my head, pinching the brink of my nose. Alpha Paul won't like that. It's fine, comforted Gayla, rubbing my back. He spoke to Alpha Paul about everything when he arrived back this morning, and Dylan's agreed to stay for a little bit longer until he's happy with the progress of the fighters. Okay, that's good, I replied, pressing my head against the headboard, allowing my neck to crack, sending a pleasurably pleasurable shiver down my spine. Your dad came over, murmured Gila, chewing on her plump bottom lips. Oh my god, what did he say? I asked, running my hands down my face. He was kind of freaking out and he wanted to see you, but my parents spoke to him and convinced him to go home. He's been calling twice a day to check up on you, so you should go see him once you're feeling up to it, said Gayla, settling down next to me. I will. He's gonna be so annoyed I didn't tell him about Dylan. I sighed mentally, cursing to myself. Gia smiled, shaking her head. I don't think he'll be annoyed. He'll just miss you. Miss me? I asked, raising an eyebrow at my best friend as she raked her fingers through her long blonde hair. Yeah, when you go to become Leah. We'll all miss you. I flickered my brows at Gia's sorrowful tone, shaking my head. I haven't really thought about that. Really? Asked Gayla. You're gonna be a Leah. Clara, it's such a big responsibility, and you're going to be so busy. I'm just worried you won't have time to visit. I sighed, grabbing her hands, refusing to speak until she looked at me. Gia, I will always have time for you. I will always have time for my family. And although, yes, I will have to leave eventually, I will be calling you every day and visiting as often as I can. You're my best friend, and I am not going to lose you. Gia smiled, her eyes tearing up as she wrapped her arms around me, pulling me in for a hug. I just want a mate so I'm not so lonely when you go. She sniffled into my shoulder, sighing deeply. You'll find him, Gia. Who knows? Maybe he's in Dylan's back. Gia shook her head, wiping her under eyes as she pulled away from me. No. I would have felt it when we stayed over that night after the club. Besides, that would mean you would become my Leah, which is weird. I scrunched up my nose, flickering my brows. Ew. Yeah, that is weird. Are you feeling any better? Do you think your heat is over? Asked Gia, cocking her head as she watched me. I nodded my head, stretching out my arms and legs, enjoying the feeling of tension crawling away. I feel fine. Well, you'll need something to eat so I can make you something while we wait for Dylan to get back. He should be done soon. I pulled on one of Gia's oversized Kardashians, following her down the stairs and into the kitchen, settling down on one of the bar stools. Okay, said Gia, pulling open the fridge and studying what was inside. What do you want? I can make pasta, we can have pizza, or just toast, or I could. Toast is fine, Gia, thank you. I laughed, causing her to smile, grabbing a couple slices of bread and popping them in the toaster. Suddenly, a knock on the door caused both of us to nearly jump out of our skins. I sighed, shaking my head, walking towards it, wondering who had banged so urgently. I flung the door open, expecting to see my father, George, or Matthew, but I scrunched my nose up in disgust as Jen stepped back from the door, crossing her arms over her chest. What? I asked, really not feeling in the mood for her snobby comments. Where is Dylan? She asked, raising her eyebrows at me rudely, tapping her foot. Why do you care? I snickered, anger bubbling up inside of me, my inner wolf begging me to leap at her. I'm his assistant, and he hasn't been at the cabin for 2 nights now, and I'm supposed to be preparing his meals for him. I rolled my eyes, laughing. Well, maybe you're a bad cook. I heard Gia snickered from the kitchen, causing me to smirk to myself, gaining a glance from a very agitated Jen. Alpha Paul gave me this role, Clara, and I intended to fulfill it. So if you know where Dylan has been staying the past 2 nights, I suggest you tell me. Here, I replied, slamming the door in her face, growling to myself. He was told by Alpha Paul to stay in his cabin, growled Jen from the other side of the door, causing me to groan, pulling the door open again. If you have a problem, Jen, take it up with Dylan. He's been here because I was in it and he wanted to be with his mate, and Alpha Paul is aware of that. So just leave us alone, I growled, between grunted teeth, gripping the door frame so tightly that my knuckles were starting to turn white. Jen snuffled, rolling her eyes. You really don't expect me to believe that you're mates, do you? You're just power-hungry and want him for his money and title. Just because you have a sweet little charm on him doesn't mean he's your mate, I growled, closing my eyes for a few seconds, trying to calm my wolf as I took a step forward, causing Jen to take a step backwards, eyeing me up. You're just a young little kid who dreams of being a loner, snobbed Jen, flickering a bright ambered hair behind her shoulder, a snug look plastered on her freckled face. So you think you can talk to me like crap because you're a few years older than me, I growled. No, replied Gia, smirking. I can talk to you like crap because you're a desperate little bitch who is intending on getting in my way. Suddenly, I leaped forward at Jen, shifting into my light brown wolf, pinning her to the dirt with my large paw, the anger bubbling up inside of me, finally spilling over, submerging my body. Jen screamed, shifting into her amber wolf, snapping at me as she pushed me off of her, breathing her teeth. What the hell? Screamed Gia as she ran to the door, her eyes wide as she took in the sight in front of her. Jen growled as she punched at me, biting down on my neck as I yapped, clawing at her face until I draw blood, causing her to snicker backwards, releasing my grip. Guys, stop! Yelled Gia, waving her arms in the air as she cursed to herself. I growled again, launching forward at Jen, causing her to wheeze and back up, her eyes wide as she studied my fierce wolf stalking towards her. Jen glanced up at me, shaking her head as she painfully swiped me across the face, causing my oath to snarl, drooling down my jaw and landing in the mud beneath me. I quickly griddled Jen to the ground, pushing my large paw down on her neck Denying her hair, she attempted to snap at me, but the more she struggled, the more of my weight I pushed down on her neck, causing her to slip her. That's enough, boomed a loud voice, causing me to raise my head, noticing my shirtless mate standing in front of me, his mouth set in a firm line. I growled in Jen's face one last time, ensuring she knew that I wasn't scared to hurt her again. Stepping away from her, I watched as she wheezed, slowly moving to go and cower behind my mate, as if he was protecting her. I rolled my eyes, my wolf feeling nothing but rage at the fact that my own mate looked angry that I had just defended myself. Jen, go home, ordered Dylan, causing Jen to wheeze even more, glancing up at him longingly as if begging him to escort her. Go! Jen cowered away at Dylan's harsh tone, her hammered collar wolf quickly scrunching away as Dylan turned to me, a small smirk playing at his lips, causing me to cock my head slightly confused. Impressive, he replied, crossing his arms over his chest, smiling. I thought you said you couldn't fight.